Good afternoon and welcome back to the No Name channel. I'm Bruce Coleman and today is another anthropology video, Introduction to Anthropology, and today I'm going to be talking about the history of anthropology. But first, there was a term that I forgot in the first video and it's an important term. So it's holism. So anthropology is a holistic social science. Holism, what is holism? Well, holism is used when we talk about our profession, and it's studying the whole of the human condition, past, present, future, biology, society, language, and culture. So that's holism. And when I was talking about I became an anthropologist because I wanted to study everything, that's pretty much it. So if somebody says, why are you interested in anthropology? It's a holistic social science. Good way to answer that question. Okay, now, history. History of anthropology, way too big to do in a 15-minute video. And so what I'm going to do today is do a kind of it's just an overview, a quick survey of anthropology from what we usually consider the beginning in Greek times, ancient Greek times, up to the age of exploration. I can never say that word. The age of exploration. And then I'm going to go on after that in a different video. So it's going to be, history is going to be in two parts. Today, and then 2 videos from now. And I'm wearing my sunglasses indoors because I was bitten, well, not really bitten. I got a rogue beetle, which are very common here, especially at this time of the year. In my bed, on my eye, I squished it, and they don't actually bite you. The poison, the toxin is in the blood, so when you squish it, you spread it around, and you get these really blisters. And they can be painful, and they can last. And I'm taking what I call TIM, Traditional Indonesian Medicine. You may have heard of TCM, Traditional Chinese Medicine. This is Traditional Indonesian Medicine. And my eye is a little swollen, so I'm wearing sunglasses. Let's get started with history of anthropology. And during Greek period, what happened? We're gonna say that anthropology as a, well, pre-discipline started with Herodotus. And Herodotus was a Greek a writer, thinker, traveler from the 5th century. And he's usually referred to as or often referred to as the father of history. If you like those terms, I'm not really comfortable with calling people the father of this, the father of that, but that's, if you look him up, and there's some links below to him, you'll see him often referred to as the father of history, and occasionally as the father of ethnography, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. So, he was often cited as the first writer to discuss topics, concepts, concerns that are key to anthropology, and his most famous work is History, or The Histories. It's translated in different ways in different sources, and it was a systematic study of the Greco-Persian War. And so, why is the father of history, or the founder of history, maybe better to say? Why is he considered to be the first ethnographer? Well, his curiosity led him to travel, and his travel and write, and his travels and writing increased Greek understanding of the world around them. At the time, there was this notion that was being debated about nomos and physis, and without going into Greek, and I've never studied Greek, it's the idea of fixed human nature versus a mutable human nature. And so he came down on the side of human nature being able to change, that there was a culture that was different in different places. We weren't all the same. And so his narrative in the histories, which is really long, and I'll see if I can find the link and put it here. It is real long, and I'll admit I've only read about half of it. But it's really interesting. I read the half that I was interested in. So in his writing, he includes stories, myths, reports from sailors and travelers, as well as his own observations. And he comments on nature and society, and he built this narrative structure for his writing on society, civilization, and the people that inhabited them. And he described the customs of the people as well as their peculiarities. He was looking at causes and effects for great historical events as well as for the behaviors of people. And so he made some small voyages to southern Italy, to Sicily, Phoenicia. He was at the Black Sea. He went as far east as Babylon, and he recorded his impressions, his observations in the histories. And the history is the main topic is the wars, the Greco-Persian wars. But he makes all these side jumps, and those are the ones that I find interesting. That's where the ethnographic material is. What I find to be really interesting, and in this his writing about Egypt, which is really interesting. So he went to see Egypt, and he was there not really to just to view the pyramids like tourists do, but he wanted to find out about the architecture, the religion, the deities, the temples, the pyramids as well. He looked at work gangs. How did the pyramids get built? What about those people that built them? How much money did they have to spend to do this? He also asked why bulls were sacrificed to the Egyptian god Isis, the ritual attitude towards pigs, which foods were considered unclean for priests, available types of embalming, whether the Greek divinities were derived from the Egyptians or vice versa. He claims that the Ethiopians worship Dionysus. He examines past oracles. He describes ritual practices of tribes in northern Russia. But he doesn't just talk about religious matters. He's interested in everything, like a good anthropologist should be. And so he was looking at types of cloth woven from hemp made in southern Russia to candy made in certain towns in Asia Minor, marriage practices of the Babylonians. So there are these things that he's witnessed. He's witnessed firsthand, plus he has these other stories. But he also comes up with fables and legends and things that are, probably not true. He was called by some people the father of lies. Whether what he's reported on is true or not is still being debated. So what does he talk about? Some of the strange things he talks about. He's talked about certain types of birds that build their nests with cinnamon sticks. Giant snakes, dog-headed men, headless men with eyes in their breast, and wild men and women, stories of ants bigger than foxes, who dig for gold in the Indian desert, griffins in northern Russia, goat-footed people, men who sleep 6 months of the year. So cannibals, of course, all right? We always have to talk about cannibals in anthropology. So he has all these great stories. And you find these later on, of course, when you get into, if you look at some of Marco Polo's writings. But along with these dubious stories, he's got some good ethnographic reporting. And so that's why he's considered to be one of the founders, or the founder of ethnography. And he takes a pretty even-handed approach. He doesn't make the Persians out to be all bad. He looks at them, he says some people are bad, some people are good. He tries to be fairly even-handed about his historiographical writing. And so, in a broad way, his methods of collecting information, and the information that he's collected, the things that he's interested in, not too dissimilar from today's anthropologists. And so, enough of Herodotus. We've got a long way to go here, and we're going to jump to the 14th century, Ibn Khaldun. And Ibn Khaldun was an Arabian historian, a social scientist, a writer, a traveler, Islamic judge, a scholar, and a politician as well. And his most important work, the introduction, Muqaddimah, is a socioeconomic geographical history of empires, in which he uses as a central concept al-Asabiyyah. Al-Asabiyyah is translated as group solidarity, social cohesion, tribalism by some people, nationalism by other people. And this social cohesion, al-Asabiyyah, arises spontaneously out of tribes and out of small kinship groups, and it's intensified through religion, and it grows, and eventually you develop a state. And sounds kind of like social evolution that he's talking about. But we're running out of time here. He's a fascinating figure. I could talk about him for a couple of videos. There's a link to one of his books. And he was also this political advisor to Islamic around the world, to sultans around the Islamic world. And he would get into trouble. He was an interesting guy. Sometimes he was working for one guy, he saw that he was about to lose his power, and he would switch over and help his opponent. And so, yeah, he got in some trouble. And he ended up his life as a Qadi. It was, I think, the 6th time. Qadi is a judge. 6th time he was appointed. He would get appointed, then he would leave either voluntarily or involuntarily. And his work is fascinating. And so take a look at some links here about that. And so what is he doing? He's doing the same thing that Herodotus did. He's writing about people, about their customs. He's looking at how civilizations rise and fall. Sounds familiar? Rise and fall of the Roman Empire. So then we had, of course, you got Marco Polo and his time in the court of Kublai Khan. But Marco Polo's tales aren't really, they're not organized, they're not scientific. There's some information, some ethnographic information that's solid. A lot of it is not. And then during the Renaissance period, we have classical antiquity is being studied again, and this stimulated an interest, a general interest in differences among men. And at this time, there was also a model that was being developed for describing these differences. The Renaissance period was marked by a conflict between a reliance on the text of classical antiquity and the new information that was starting to come back into Europe from the voyages of people like Columbus and others. And the perspective of anthropology owes a lot to the experience of these Europeans during the voyages of discovery. And the Enlightenment brought intellectuals who were looking for answers about human nature. And it marked the rise of scientific and rational philosophical thought. Now, these intellectuals, these thinkers, base their work on philosophical reason rather than on religious texts and classical antiquity text from classical antiquity. They were asking important anthropological questions, and the data that was coming in, these stories from other cultures, other worlds, that the reports that were coming in from the explorers, from the age of exploration, which overlaps the Renaissance and the Age of Enlightenment. That's the period in European history when colonialism starts as a powerful factor in European culture, and it's the beginning of globalization. So the Age of Exploration brought many accounts from explorers and early colonialists of the strange and inexplicable beliefs and behaviors of people as they had moved around the world. Stories about strange and fantastic animals and plants, headhunters, cannibals, as well as some real solid reporting. Some of the explorers delved into the local culture. They met with people. This is moving from merely retelling stories from others to actually getting information from the native, or the informant, as anthropologists used to call these people, or collaborators, as they're more often called these days. And often these reports came from conquered areas, rulers of conquered areas. And so you had these explorers, and you've studied their names throughout history, but also people were beginning to come in, dispossessed people, poor Europeans, many of whom were kind of rootless and not necessarily the best citizens, who were brought in to man, to people, these what they called factories, which were basically trading posts that were set up. And I'm going to be talking about one of the areas I love the best in Indonesia, the Spice Islands, the Malukus. I've spent a significant amount of time there. I love the area. And so we're going to take a little look. This is kind of like anthropology in practice. And so I think I'm probably way over time. And so we're going to end right here, right? We're in the 16th, 17th, 15th, 16th, 17th century. We're going to take a look at the spice trade during that period, the development of the colonization of what is now called Indonesia by the Dutch, some battles between the Dutch, the Portuguese, the Spanish, the English over this area, and how that's affected our view of humanity. And so that's it. I hope you enjoyed that. If you did, subscribe or click like or make a comment. If you didn't, tough. And so that's it for today. Next report will be, well, I don't know. It'll be an anthropology video, or it will be one of my Singaraja videos, or a Bali COVID-19 update. So, 3 different types of videos going on here. Okay, so thanks for viewing. I hope you're safe. Stay safe. Wear a mask. Be kind to someone. Bye.